Domestic violence can be one of the most difficult types of situations to talk about and escape from. And sadly, it can happen to anyone: women, men, children, spouses, and friends. Hi there, I'm Detective Watts with the Mooresville Police Department, and this is
Lori Carlson, and I'm the Community Resource Coordinator for the Mooresville Police Department.
And we wanted to talk to you all a little bit about domestic violence.
October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I just wanted to share with you some of the issues that our clients or our victims face. I wanted to share with you a case that I have on my caseload right now, and just to let you know that domestic violence does not discriminate. I have a gentleman on my caseload. He's 45 years old. He's married to his high school sweetheart for 20 years. He proudly served in the military. He has a good reputation. He lives in an upper class neighborhood and is currently a department supervisor at a manufacturing company. He started receiving calls from bill collectors, and his wife demands that she takes care of all the finances and makes all the financial decisions. She gives him $10 a week if he asks for an allowance. She calls him worthless and makes light of his anxiety. He secretly goes to the company sponsored gym 3 times a week and participates in a veterans support group to deal with his anxiety. This particular person has various barriers that he's facing. First of all, he's a male, and there's a stigma to male victims of domestic violence. And there's also limited resources for men.
Lori, you're correct. With all of those issues that he has, I'm sure it is hard for him to kind of get the right resources and assistance, because most of the time when you think about domestic violence, the people you think about being the victims are women. So
right.
A lot of times your shelters are women-only shelters.
That's right.
And a lot of your programs are centered around women only as being the victims, so it's kind of harder. Then to top it all off, that he's got issues with mobility, correct?
His anxiety.
And his anxiety. Okay, so with his anxiety, that in itself can be difficult, especially, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, you said that he was in the military?
He was briefly in the military. He's a very proud veteran. He's very proud of his career, and he's in a position now of supervision, and he's embarrassed. He's embarrassed to talk to anybody about it, and he doesn't know what people are going to think of him.
It also sounds like he's afraid that she's going to find out that he's going to these sessions and possibly going to the gym.
Right.
But the thing that also concerns me is it sounds like there's a financial issue there too, since she's controlling all the bills.
That's
and
right.
all the finances. And if I heard correctly, you said that he can only get $10 a week, but he's got to ask for it.
Correct.
So if she's in a bad mood and he doesn't want to start any issues with her, he may not even ask for that.
That's right.
And if she's in charge of all the bills and finances, if he goes to do anything with, he almost has to ask permission, correct?
Exactly.
So I could
Exactly.
understand that if he's being assaulted by her, why he's not wanting to say anything, because I'm sure he feels that being proud like that it's harder for him to get help, and he doesn't really see a way out. Have you encountered places that are willing to help our male victims?
I do have my sister's house in Troutman. They do have a male counselor at 5th Street Ministries that I have referred men to. And that's really about the only counselor dealing in this particular topic that I have found so far.
Okay, well that's good that there's something out there for him. I know that when it comes down to the law enforcement side of things, especially nowadays, gender is not something that we discriminate against in law. If somebody has wronged you, it doesn't matter if it's male, female, they're going to receive the same process through the criminal justice system. And for him, it sounds like one of the things that might be a good idea is if he's having these issues with finance and something's going on at home to where he is a victim of domestic violence, it might be a good idea for him to seek maybe a domestic violence protection order, because that would at least allow him to be in the residence if anything were to happen. And you said you had another person as well?
I do. I have a woman. She's 28 years old, from Korea. She came to the United States about 5 years ago on a fiance visa, and married her husband, but he's a citizen. He never filed the proper paperwork for her to become a citizen, so she's still in immigration status. So right now she's undocumented, and they have 2 children. She speaks a small amount of English, and she works part-time at a local grocery store. He's telling her that if she tries to leave him, he will report her to the authorities and take away her children. So she's stuck.
Yeah, she definitely feels like she's stuck, especially not knowing the language or anything about our legal system, because I imagine our legal system is very different from what she knows from Korea. So trying to explain the process to her, and also finding somebody that is able to speak to her to where she can understand it, is going to be a difficult process in itself. But the good thing is, I know with our department here, we have the language line, and they provide services to anyone, any language. It might take them a minute to find somebody that can speak that, but they are more than willing to help try and bridge that barrier.
That's good to know.
And it also sounds too that maybe speaking with the language line, we could get a hold of somebody that knows more about customs and explain to her that just because she's here under circumstances where she doesn't have the proper documentation, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are automatically sent on a plane and sent back, especially if you have children that were born here in the United States. But I could see how all of those barriers would make you feel like you have no other means but to stay in an abusive relationship. However, there is also something that we didn't discuss, and that would be the culture bias that goes with where she's come from. And I know that you and I have seen this in many of our victims too, that come from other countries and other cultures. What we consider to be domestic violence is something that they've never been taught is wrong, or it's accepted in their culture. So kind of getting over that barrier too can be difficult. Explain to them that this is a crime here and this is not okay. Because when it's been ingrained in your mind for so long that this is how things go, it's hard to understand that that's not okay. And was there one other thing that I was missing on there with her? Because I want to say, so she has the 2 children, correct?
She has 2 children, 2 younger children.
And the only other thing that I can think of with that is if the 2 children are seeing all of this domestic violence take place, what kind of damage is that doing to them?
Exactly.
And I know that whenever we have a situation out on the road and a domestic incident is taking place and children are involved, we usually make a referral to the Department of Social Services and ask them to review the case, especially if it's something that's going on in the home, so that we can make sure the children are okay.
Well, statistics show that 1 in 5 children are exposed to domestic violence, and 90% of them witness the actual act of violence.
And that's really sad when you think about it in the long run, and the things that can cause later on in life too. But it's good to know that with the resources we have here, working with DSS and working with all of our judicial officials and prosecutors, the district attorney's office, the magistrates in jail, that we're able to handle this situation a little bit better than some of the surrounding counties. Because we do have a domestic violence task force formed here in Iredell. And with that domestic violence task force, we all kind of help to hold each other accountable to making sure that we address some of these issues, or at least get more people on board to be able to address these issues. Well, I really do appreciate that. I hope that that kind of sitting back and thinking about some of the people that we've dealt with, it really brings up all of the different barriers, and you can really get an idea of what kind of shoes these people must be in and situations that they're in, and all of the difficulties that they might have coming forward and saying, I'm being abused, I'm in a domestic situation, and I need help. If you or somebody you know is a victim of domestic violence, please contact us using the information below on the screen.